Hi everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of Whispers from the Countryside. I know that you're all dying to hear about the roof. It ended up being such a monstrous task, and even though we were really hoping to finish it in round about a month, if you remember, I took a month of work. As it stands now, it's the 16th of November, and we started on the 2nd of September, so it took roughly 2.5 months. We finished just 5 days ago. And I worked out from all the photos, from the dates on the photos, that actually we only had, out of that 2.5 months, 32 actual roof work days, 27 that were that we couldn't work because it rained. We've had such bad weather, and 1 day which we took off because of Kinky. I will be doing another video especially for Kinky. Because I think the roof deserves its own video, but more importantly, Kinky deserves his own video as well. So without further ado, I'm just going to launch straight in. I have put it into 2 parts because otherwise it was just going to be too long. So this part 1, will be the first half of the roof and the fixing of the gable end, and part 2 will be the second half of the roof and the hip end. So stay tuned and let us know what you think. The long climb to freedom. So, what are we doing today, John?
We're going to clear the tiles, the gable end, so we can see the state of the gable end before we cap it.
Okay, what is the gable end looking like? From what we can see, bits of rotten wood.
Moss, loose stones, look fairly clean.
And a ridge beam hanging underneath, which we spotted yesterday, but we'll take that out later.
Yes.
So we're going to take these all off. Alright, so I'm going to stop recording and get to work. So we've removed a couple of rows of tiles around the gable end on both sides. And now we are going to cut these battens so that we can remove this beam and clear all of these battens from here so that we can pack this. And then we're going to try and prep the top bit ready for a nice secure level to put the new ridge beam in. So we're just coming back after lunch, but what we've done so far is remove those 2 rafters on this side and the other side, and the tiles that we've taken off, I've wire brushed all of those so they're all nice and clean. There are the 2 rafters we took off, and we've taken out a load of nails, and we'll probably chop the tops off and see if we can use them somewhere else. They're a bit rotten at the top to be used again for rafters. So now John's going to carry on cleaning on the other side. You can see he's got the vacuum up there, and I'm going to wire brush the rest of those tiles, and that's about it for the next shift. So that's us shutting up shop for the day. It's 4 o'clock. We've taken off 2 of the gable end rafters. I have wire brushed 130 tiles. All our tools are in the little Tupperware box overnight. And we've covered
the gable end with a piece of roofing membrane to protect it from the rain tonight. Those tiles have still got to be cleaned, as well as those tiles. But we can't do any more today because the next job is mixing concrete and it's peeing down with rain tomorrow. So I thought I might give you a tour of the scaffolding. Obviously, this is the ladder. There's our back door. It's one of the things I love about working on the roof, is you get to see everything from a different perspective. That's John's office window there. Veg patch, lawn, and back to scaffolding. So this is the full length of the little barn here. That's our scaffolding that we've put up to hold the tiles. And then when you get to this end, let me just hop up. Oop. I shall climb up the little ladder safely with one hand. Grab hold of the scaffolding. Oh. Now you can see. Now you can see how high we are. There's the top of the roof, look. There's the garden. Isn't it amazing? It's just so lovely. I almost want to bring up a table and chairs. And then I'll end with the rather sad sight of the cottage roof. And you can see just from this perspective how bad it is. The ridge beam along the top is gone. There's bits falling in there. This whole end here is collapsing. So you can also see up here where the roof is collapsed of this barn on the side. Anyway, I'm going inside for a well-earned coffee. We got more done today than we were expecting because we thought the rain would prevent us doing a lot more. So we're ending on a high, and we'll see what the rain's doing tomorrow. Until then, bye bye.
The shiny ball patch.
It's a solar panel.
It is actually. I get my energy from it.
Who needs fancy schmancy lifts, eh?
When you got a John. However, when we do bulk, we'll be using a rope.
Yes.
Like the old days.
Good morning from the top of the roof. Isn't it beautiful? Hello.
Are you right down there?
I'm good, thank you. You're right up there.
Oh yeah. As well. 'Cause There we go. That'll be the last mix of the day. Yeah.
Oh.
Because when we put the joints up, there'll be some cutting and we'll make our mixers in and I can fill the gap.
Okay.
Don't make it for now because it gets sloppy.
Right.
Alright?
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, make up.
This next bit I have to explain because I didn't take any photos or do any videos while we were doing it because it was really just crazy. The problem with the roof started because the ridge beam had rotted and collapsed. So if you imagine you have the walls of the building and then you have the roof that sits on top. The ridge beam is that it's the main roof beam that runs along the top. And inside you have what you call A-frames, and it's wood that goes sort of down the length of the roof and then down into the walls, and they cross at the top like that. And the ridge beam sits in that little place. And the workshop roof had one long beam that went across from the gable end across to the first A-frame and then across to the second A-frame. But what had happened is that the first half up from the gable end to that first A-frame had rotted here over the A-frame and had fallen off the gable end and it had rotted away. I mean, there was probably like a gap like that. Which meant all the ridge tiles at the top were starting to collapse and all the rafters that were along the roof resting on that ridge beam had started to rot at the top because they weren't resting on anything, and the ridge beam had created a hole in the top of the roof and all the water was getting in. So we had to replace that ridge beam. And for months before we started the actual work on the workshop, we were wondering how the two of us were going to get this bloody great big beam up 2 flights, two stories, and then up to the top of the roof. And we played around with all sorts of ideas. We thought, well, we've got the digger, we can somehow strap this beam to the digger bucket and then lift the bucket up and then somehow pull it up to the roof. I lost count of the number of times we had this discussion and we couldn't visualize. We had lots of ideas, and John's always really good coming up with ideas about how to do stuff. But we were, up until the very moment we did it, not really sure how we were going to do it. And the day arrived. You've seen how far we've come on the video so far. We've inserted the metal bracket up there, which we wanted the ridge beam to sit onto. And the only reason we did that is because, remember, originally the ridge beam went right the way across the roof, and now we're only replacing half of the ridge beam. So that metal plate went in there to go more than halfway across, so we could be assured that there would be enough support for the ridge beam. And we have a pile in the garden of loads of beams, which we bought secondhand. Nice, big, strong beams. But this one had to be a certain size so that it could sit in that wedge of that metal bracket that we'd already put in. And it had to be more or less straight. And we went out and we looked in our pile. We had 2 piles there, and we uncovered all of these beams, and none of them seemed suitable. They all had sort of kinks in them, which are fine if you want to, an unusual, end post for your wall in the house, because most of those we're using decoratively, not for structural. That's fine, but not for the ridge beam. And we dug and eventually we found one that we kind of thought, well, we only need whatever it was, I think 4 4 meters or something. So we found one where we could cut the end off, and it had a little kink at the end, but we thought, well, as long as it's resting on the gable end, that little kink is okay. And how we ended getting this beam up is John had some heavy duty straps which he keeps in the van, and what we ended up doing is we wrapped the straps around the beam, I think vertically and horizontally, if I remember correctly. And basically, we stood it on its end at the bottom of the ladder. And I climbed up onto the scaffolding above the ladder, wedged my knees around the ladder, and then bent down and held the top of the strap. John got down on his knees and hoiked this beam up, and I pulled it up with the strap, and then went down the strap, and then he stepped on the first step of the ladder, and as we did it together, obviously 3, 2, 1, and then I would pull and he would step up the ladder, and then I would take the slack of this beam. So basically between the two of us, I pulled and he pushed until we got it high enough on the ladder where it pivoted over, and we were able to, well, I was able to let the weight fall onto the scaffolding, and I was able to secure it while John came up the ladder onto the scaffolding. And between the two of us, then we were able to carry this beam. I don't know, it was like 70 kilograms, I think. I'll put a note here if that's wrong. I'll check with John. I think it's around 70 kilograms. We had to carry this thing along the scaffolding, up that step on the side. You've seen the video, you know there's a step on the side and then a step up to the gable end. We had to get it up there. And once we got it up there, it was like, okay, how the hell are we going to get this up on the ridge now without it falling down? And you know, there's nothing below now, and oh my god, I don't know how we did it, but we did. I do remember us getting a scaffolding pole at some point to lever something up so that we could, it was insane. But once we did it and it was in place, we kind of both stood there, and it was kind of a feeling of like not quite believing we'd just managed to do it after all the talking we'd done for months on how to get this thing up there. It was a bit of an anticlimax. It was a bit like, oh, well, okay, that's done. Do you want a coffee? So that's why you'll see in the next part of the video and the photos, the ridge beam's actually already there, but there were no photos because you know I've got to be careful when I do the videos and take the photos because, you know, safety first and all that. So anyway, I thought I'd just pop that in so that you knew how we got that ridge beam up there, because you'll see it now in the next photos.
Making space for one of the gable end beams with the adjustment key. Today's job was to remove the 3 rows of battens here so we could get access to the top of the wall inside, and then give it a good clean out. This is after its first scrub and vacuum. It was absolutely thick with sponge, if I show you what the end looks like over there. Okay, that's not even that bad, but and then we're just going to go over again, because in between these big rocks, this is just like a clay, and we need to dig that out so that we can put a nice cement layer there and cement all these blocks in. So that's today's task. All clean and vacuumed, ready for the concrete to go in later, or tomorrow. No, tomorrow's raining. Wednesday I think is the next clear day. Today's Saturday. Yeah, there we go. Very exciting milestone today. We have finished boarding the one side of the roof. Look at that. How exciting is that? Which means the next task is putting the waterproof membrane, and then we batten, and then we double batten, and then we start tiling. Woohoo!
So what do you think? Doesn't it look great? I remember standing there and just looking at that side with all the tiles on, and just feeling so happy and so emotional. It's also a relief to get it done. We had to wait a few days for the scaffolding guys to come dismantle all the scaffolding and move it round to the other side. But as soon as that was done, we were back up again and starting again. So the second stage, we didn't have to do the gable end repairs. We didn't have to put the ridge beam in. However, the second side had the hip end, which is the little kind of triangular bit on the end. So that proved to be a little tricky. So that was it for part 1, and you'll have to wait just a wee bit longer for part 2. I should be releasing that in just over a week. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.